Hello, my name is Bernal Cruz. I'm the chair of the board for Broaden International. I'm a child welfare expert working as a case coordinator for unaccompanied children in the United States.
And hello, my name is Rebecca Sanchez, and I'm an advisory council member with RAIN International. I am also the equity and inclusion manager for Multnomah County.
Today, we'll be talking to you about addressing concerns and implications for families and communities of displaced people. When we talk about the effects of displacement on families and communities, it's imperative that we keep in mind that families and communities are made of individuals. These individuals, for the most part, have experienced a great deal of trauma in their countries of origin, leading them to flee, subsequently experiencing trauma along the journey, and ultimately experiencing trauma in the countries and places that they're trying to resettle. It's important that we also bear in mind that any service provider, anyone who is intending to help, whether you're a clinician, administrative person, or have some different type of role, there's a great potential for you to actually participate in what we call re-traumatization. Sometimes with our good intentions and trying to deliver the best services available, we will have to ask questions that can trigger somebody's memory, somebody's past, that can sometimes elicit those types of reactions. Important that we also recognize that people who have entered this country, for the most part, feel at times disenfranchised and disempowered. The adjustment period can be really prolonged and can be really challenging for families, leading sometimes to mental health problems. To talk more about the actual challenges and specific challenges that some of these families and individuals experience, Rebecca will talk to us about the next slide.
Thank you so much, Bernal. As Bernal said, that people who arrive to our new communities are going to face many, many challenges. And as you see in this slide, this is a pretty long list, but it is absolutely not exhaustive. And please know that not every individual is going to experience all of these challenges within their life. However, it's really important in our work that we are aware and we recognize that these are challenges that our clients and those we serve may face. For example, they may be finding difficulty getting work. They may be struggling to enroll their children or themselves into the education system in their community. They may be struggling to access social services. They may not even know that they're eligible for many of the social services within our communities. They may struggle to navigate the very complicated process and paperwork that's involved in applying for social services. As we know, there are many documents and many steps that are needed, and they could be provided that in both their native language and English, which can be very confusing and overwhelming. It's also really important to be aware that they may be fearing authority figures. Even though we tend to think of authority figures as perhaps a police officer, it really is anyone that holds power over someone else. And it could possibly mean us. And so we need to be aware that they may be feeling fear when interacting with social workers or those who are providing a service. We are asking them to divulge very personal information about themselves, their families, as well as financial and medical information. And so we need to be really aware of the challenge in working with us as authority figures.
When we dive deep into the challenges that folks are experiencing, it's important to also bear in mind that there is a response that goes along with this. And for the most part, the responses that we've gathered here, again, this is not an exhaustive list, are based on mental health models. But it's important to underscore that many of these interventions do not require a person to be a mental health practitioner or professional to implement. For instance, when we talk about psychoeducation, we promote understanding of anxiety in everyday life as it relates to policies and politics affecting the community. It's important that we encourage folks to become familiar with terms like trauma and depression. It's important that we help folks process their emotions, learn how to speak about the feelings related to their experiences, to help normalize and validate the responses that individuals are having. Skills building is one of those things that anyone can do. If you're involved with these communities, it's important that you participate and strive to encourage people to cope with the symptoms of depression and anxiety, as well as promote self-care, develop social capital, introduce people to concepts of mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy wherever that is needed. I think it's relatively easy to identify the deficits sometimes folks bring with them because of their predicaments and their lived histories. but it's equally important to find the strengths. And so a strengths-based approach is very effective, highlighting resilience in communities and minimizing deficit-based interventions. Let's encourage people to celebrate their successes and always reinforce their positive qualities. It's important that we foster a sense of safety, develop safety plans, in particular with families who struggle with fear of deportation. Oftentimes people will say, how do I have a conversation with my children about the notion that one day they'll come back from school and I may not be there? A safety plan can be developed in collaboration. Building awareness. People love gathering information. It's really important that we encourage people to recognize the validity of the information that they're gathering. Sometimes gathering information from social media like Facebook from your friends isn't reliable. And sometimes the information that people hear on the news isn't subjectively reliable because they've developed reasons not to believe what's on the media.
Thank you so much, Bernal. And so what do we recommend for those who are servicing these populations when they are enacting their practice? Well, we absolutely recommend that the client should be at the center of any sort of service model that is created. Any practitioner or social worker should always collaborate with the client and always see them as a whole person within their environment. We absolutely encourage that anyone working with this population always pursues further supervision because there is always going to be growth and further understanding when working with these communities. If you would like to go more in depth on creating service models, please look for the module entitled Beyond the Current Service Model within our RAIN toolkit.
When we strive to develop an organization that is able to respond to the cultural needs of all of our communities, to be inclusive and to treat everybody equally, we strive to develop an ideal model. And this is an active pursuit. It never really ends. Even when you feel like you've achieved that pinnacle, it's important to keep in mind that you can always go beyond. You can continue to develop and help people reach empowerment. As we said before, people often find themselves disempowered and disenfranchised. It's important that those affected should lead the way and pave the path for their own activism and advocacy as well. Coalition building, of course, is really important.
We also need to remember that advocacy is really important. We must be vocal advocates for these communities. We need to utilize every possible technology or opportunity available, and that includes media, reaching out to the media, as well as reaching out to the community through doors such as schools.
And that concludes our module on families and communities, implications for displaced families. Here is our social media handles if you'd like to get a hold of us. And as Rebecca mentioned, please keep an eye for the different modules we will be formulating for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.